The neon sign outside buzzed faintly against the cool Coronado air, its red letters flickering over the windows of a bar that smelled like salt, whiskey, and old stories. Inside, the light was low and the music soft, a classic rock ballad barely cutting through the murmur of conversation. The kind of place where time slowed down, where the people who came didn't want attention, only space. She sat in the far corner, where the shadows met the glow of the jukebox. A woman in her late 30s, maybe early 40s, wearing a well-worn flight jacket over a gray t-shirt and jeans. Her hair was tied back in a neat braid, the kind of practical style that said she'd spent too many hours under a helmet. Her drink was clear ginger ale with ice, the bubbles rising, and catching the dim light as she swiped quietly through photos on her phone. A formation of jets against a sunset, a squadron patch. A face she lingered on for a moment too long before locking the screen and setting it face down. The bartender knew her. He didn't ask questions, didn't make conversation beyond a nod. Everyone who came through this place had ghosts. Hers just carried a military insignia. Every now and then, his eyes would flick toward her not out of curiosity, but out of respect. She carried herself like someone who had seen chaos and chosen peace. Shoulders squared, spine straight, but a stillness in every movement. Outside, engines rumbled, and laughter cut through the sound of the surf. The door swung open with a burst of cool air and bravado. Three men walked in broad shoulders, close-cropped hair, boots that had seen sand and salt water. Off-duty Navy SEALs. You could tell before they even opened their mouths. Their energy filled the room immediately. Loud, confident, slightly unhinged from too much adrenaline and too little decompression. 3 beers, one barked to the bartender as they claimed a table near the bar. Their laughter rolled through the small room, the kind that came from people who had been too close to things that don't make you laugh at all. The woman didn't look up, she didn't have to. Her peripheral vision caught everything, their swagger, their glances, the way one of them clocked the patch half hidden beneath her jacket when she shifted slightly in her seat. A faded F divided by A18 insignia, nearly worn off from years of use. The tallest one, a man with a deep tan and a voice that carried like a drill instructor, noticed it first. He smirked, nudging his buddy. "Looks like we've got ourselves a Top Gun in here." His friends chuckled. The woman lifted her glass, took a calm sip, and set it back down without a word. The silence that followed wasn't defensive, it was confident. The kind that comes from someone who doesn't need to prove a thing. The bartender's eyes flicked between them, a hint of warning in his tone as he filled another glass. "Leave her be, boys. She's just here for some peace." The tallest SEAL grinned, undeterred. "Hey, no harm, no foul. Just curious." She finally looked up, meeting his gaze. Her eyes were calm, gray-green, steady in a way that disarmed people faster than anger ever could. "Then stay curious," she said softly. Something in her tone, not sharp, not cold, just grounded, made the room feel heavier. The SEAL hesitated, his grin faltering just a fraction. He gave a mock salute, chuckled, and turned back to his drink. But the way he glanced at her from the corner of his eye said it wasn't over. The bartender wiped down the counter, muttering under his breath. Some people don't know when they're standing next to a storm. She didn't respond. She didn't have to. She just lifted her glass again, eyes drifting toward the reflection in the bar mirror, watching the three men laughing. Unaware that the woman they'd just teased once flew combat missions over Helmand and carried a call sign that still echoed through hangars and debrief rooms. To them, she was just a quiet woman in a corner. But to anyone who knew, that quiet carried the kind of power that made even hardened soldiers tread carefully. The scrape of a chair broke the easy rhythm of the bar. The tallest SEAL, half a beer in, decided the quiet corner was too quiet for his liking. He stood, dragging his drink in one hand, and nodded to his buddies. Together they swaggered over boots heavy on the wooden floor, their confidence filling every inch of air between the jukebox and the exit. The woman didn't move. Her eyes stayed on her glass, condensation rolling slowly down the side, her fingertips tracing the rim like she was drawing a boundary. Mind if we join you? The tall one asked, not really waiting for permission as he swung a chair around and sat backward on it, elbows resting on the backrest. His buddies followed suit, loud and easy. Come on, you look like you could use company. She smiled faintly, polite, the kind of smile that said she'd heard every variation of that line across a dozen deployments and 100 bars. I'm fine, thanks. The wiry one leaned forward, grinning. Come on, we're harmless. You Air Force? Not quite, she murmured. Ah, the tall one said, eyeing the patch under her jacket. Fighter jock, then. F divided by A, 18, huh? Thought I recognized the insignia. You Navy? She didn't look up. Was? He repeated, savoring the word. So you've got a call sign then. All you jet jockeys do. Come on, what is it? Let me guess. Something cute. Maybe cupcake or sunshine. You look like a sunshine. The other two laughed, clinking bottles. Her gaze stayed steady on her drink. Just trying to enjoy my night, she said, voice calm even. Something in her tone measured, almost too calm, made the bartender glance up from polishing a glass. He caught the moment, the way the air shifted slightly. He knew this dance. He'd seen it before, men testing boundaries they didn't understand. Don't, he muttered under his breath, not loud enough to command, just enough to warn. The tall SEAL either didn't hear or didn't care. Relax, we're just talking. What's the big deal? It's just a call sign, we've all got one. Mine's Reaper, he smirked, leaning closer. Bet yours is something real soft, maybe Daisy. Her jaw flexed slightly. She set her glass down. The ice clinked softly, one cube cracking under the shift in temperature. He was close now, too close. So what is it, sweetheart? What's your call sign? For the first time, she looked up. Slowly. Calmly. The kind of movement that draws every pair of eyes nearby without a word. The room seemed to hold its breath. Even the jukebox hummed quieter, the song fading into background noise. Her eyes met his steady, unreadable, no hostility, no fear, just control, the kind that unnerves trained men more than anger ever could. Her voice came out low, even, unshaken. Viper 1. The words were small, but they hit like a detonation. The SEAL froze, beer halfway to his mouth. His grin faltered, eyes narrowing as if trying to confirm he'd heard right. One of his friends chuckled, unsure. Viper what? She didn't blink. Viper 1. Silence. The bartender stopped moving entirely, glass in hand. The name rippled through the air, and you could feel recognition creeping in, slow and sharp. It was a name that carried stories, rumors. A pilot who had flown an F divided by A-18 through a sandstorm to cover a trapped SEAL team during a botched extraction in Helmand Province. The same mission that had gone from near disaster to miracle in 37 minutes because one pilot had refused to turn back. The tall SEAL's eyes flicked between her calm face and that faint patch on her jacket, realization dawning inch by inch. He swallowed hard, his throat suddenly dry. The bravado drained from him as fast as the color from his face. She took another slow sip of her ginger ale, as if nothing had been said at all. The bartender set the glass down softly. Told you, he muttered. The SEAL didn't answer. His buddies shifted awkwardly, their earlier grins gone. Somewhere in the back, a stool creaked. Someone whispered, "No way." But no one laughed. Finish your drinks, boys, she said quietly, eyes back on the glass in her hand. You've had enough. No threat, no heat, just a truth that landed heavy and absolute. The tall one nodded slowly, his earlier smirk replaced by something that looked a lot like respect, or maybe shame. He picked up his beer, hand trembling slightly, and for the first time that night, the bar fell completely silent. The moment stretched longer than it should have, a strange, heavy silence hanging in the bar like smoke after a shot fired indoors. The name had dropped between them, short, simple, unmistakable, and suddenly all the noise, all the easy laughter, was gone. It was like someone had cut the sound out of the air. The tallest seal blinked once, twice, the grin that had lived on his face all night slowly collapsing under the weight of realization. He searched her expression, hoping to find even a flicker of a joke, some hint that she was messing with him. But her eyes were steady, calm as the horizon before a storm. No bluff, no hesitation. Wait. His voice came out quieter now, the confidence stripped bare. Your Viper won? She didn't smirk, didn't confirm with swagger or pride. Just a single deliberate nod. Quiet, controlled. Behind the counter, the bartender didn't stop polishing the glass, but the corner of his mouth turned upward in something between amusement and vindication. Told you not to ask, he murmured, shaking his head slowly. The seal swallowed hard, the sound audible even over the hum of the jukebox. His buddies looked between him and her, confusion written on their faces. They didn't understand, not yet, but he did. That call sign wasn't just a name. It was a legend whispered in barracks and briefing rooms. Every operator knew of Time's Viper 1 asterisk. The pilot who refused the abort order in Helmand when a SEAL team was trapped in a valley with no visibility, no comms, and no hope. The one who flew into a sandstorm that grounded everyone else, using nothing but dead reckoning and grit to deliver air cover when nobody believed it could be done. She'd taken her bird through hell and back solo. He remembered the story now in flashes. The radio chatter cutting out mid-firefight, the sound of engines roaring out of nowhere, the bombs that hit so clean they'd saved an entire platoon. Afterward, all they'd been told was that Viper 1 had pulled it off. No face, no rank, just a name and an impossible act. He looked at the woman sitting quietly with a glass of ginger ale, and the faintest smile tugging at the corner of her lips. She looked nothing like the hero he'd imagined. No spotlight, no swagger. Just stillness. His hand trembled as he set his drink down. Beer sloshed over the rim, unnoticed. The laughter that once filled the bar had been replaced by something heavier, respect, maybe, or the realization that they'd been standing in front of a storm wearing human skin. The wiry seal who'd teased her earlier leaned back, frowning. You're telling me this is that Time's Viper 1? The bartender chuckled under his breath. There's only one. The SEAL leader ran a hand through his hair, his voice almost a whisper. Hell, I read that debrief. We thought you were a myth. Her gaze softened, almost tired. Most people did. I liked it that way. Nobody spoke after that. Even the other patrons, the ones who hadn't followed the exchange from the start, could feel the air had changed. The quiet woman in the corner wasn't just another off-duty officer. She was something rarer, the kind of person whose name carried weight because it had been earned in the worst places imaginable. The leader finally exhaled, long and slow. You saved a lot of us out there. Her response came gently, no hint of pride. You all saved yourselves. I just gave you a chance to finish the fight. The bartender wiped the counter, shaking his head. I'd say that's one hell of a chance. She didn't answer. She turned her glass in her hands, ice melting slowly. Her eyes distant, not here, not now, but back in the desert sky, where the cockpit lights glowed dim red and the radio was filled with static and chaos. The SEAL stared at her like he was seeing something sacred. Ma'am, he said finally, voice low, if I'd known. She interrupted softly. You'd have acted the same. I prefer it that way. For a long moment, no one breathed. Then the leader straightened, squared his shoulders, and nodded. Not the cocky, easy nod of a man at a bar, but the formal, wordless one soldiers give when they recognize someone who's been through the same hell and come out sharper, quieter. He left his drink untouched. The tremor in his hand had stopped, replaced by a stillness that mirrored hers. The jukebox changed songs. The bartender smiled faintly, almost to himself. Viper 1, he said under his breath, as if trying the name on again after years of silence. And somewhere between the fading chords and the soft hum of the neon light, the seals realized the truth: they hadn't just met a pilot. They'd met the ghost of their own survival, sitting quietly in a corner, trying to drink in peace. For a long while, nobody moved. The air in the bar stayed heavy, like it had absorbed the weight of everything that wasn't said. The seals sat there with drinks untouched, the ice melting, the foam gone flat, as if time itself had paused to give them a moment to understand what had just happened. The woman Viper 1 sat calmly in her corner again, her shoulders relaxed, her gaze steady. She didn't gloat, she didn't need to. Her silence spoke louder than any war story ever could. The leader was the first to stand. His boots scraped softly against the floorboards, the sound too small for a man who carried so much pride when he'd walked in. He looked down at her, not with pity or guilt, but with something deeper: recognition. A soldier's understanding of what it means to have seen too much and still keep your edges sharp. "Ma'am," he said, his voice stripped of all bravado. "We owe you beers." "Hell," he exhaled, shaking his head with a self-deprecating smile. "We owe you lives." Her eyes met his, calm as still water. The faintest hint of a smile touched her lips, but it wasn't smug, it was kind. "You don't owe me anything," she said softly. "Just be better to the next quiet one in the corner." The words landed the way good advice always does: simple, true, and impossible to argue with. The leader nodded once, slow and deliberate. His buddies followed suit, chairs pushing back, their movements suddenly careful, as if afraid to break the fragile respect that had settled over the room. None of them said a word. Their laughter from earlier now felt like something that belonged to different men. As they turned to leave, the bartender leaned over the counter, his voice low and familiar. "Hadn't seen you in years, Viper." She tugged her jacket closed, the faint reflection of the patch catching the bar's dim light. "Peace and quiet doesn't last long," she said, almost to herself. The bartender chuckled, shaking his head. "Never does for your kind." She gave a faint nod, dropped a bill on the table, and stood. Her movement was smooth, almost ghost-like. The seals stepped aside without being asked, an unspoken acknowledgement passing between them as she walked toward the door. When it closed behind her, the bar felt colder, emptier, as if a storm had passed and left the air scrubbed clean. Outside, the night was quiet. The ocean murmured in the distance, and the streetlights cast long, wavering shadows across the asphalt. The three seals walked toward their truck in silence. No jokes, no swagger, just the rhythmic sound of boots on pavement. Halfway there, the wiry one broke the silence, voice low with disbelief. "She flew through hell for us," he said, "and we tried to flirt with her." The leader gave a short laugh, more a breath than a sound. "Yeah," he said. "She flew through hell for a lot of people." He paused, looking back toward the bar, the faint glow of neon reflected in his eyes. Never underestimate who's sitting in the quiet corner. They climbed into the truck, doors slamming one by one. For a long moment, none of them started the engine. The hum of the streetlight filled the silence, and each of them sat there, thinking about that night in Helmand: the chaos, the radio silence, the sound of engines cutting through the storm when everyone thought they were dead. The leader rubbed his palms against the steering wheel. "Viper 1, he muttered under his breath, almost reverently. The name settled between them again, the kind of name that carried weight long after the person was gone. Inside the bar, the bartender wiped down her empty table, shaking his head with a small grin. "You still got it, Viper," he murmured, half to himself. Outside, the sound of the truck engine finally broke the stillness. The seals drove off into the coastal night, quieter than when they'd come, their laughter replaced with reflection. And somewhere down the street, a woman in a faded flight jacket walked alone under the dim glow of the lights, hood pulled up, hands in her pockets. She didn't need anyone to know who she was. She'd spent enough of her life proving it. Some legends didn't need a stage, they just needed a corner, a quiet drink, and a name that once made men stop breathing mid-sentence.